English practice today from podcast of SBS News, Morning News, 11th of June 2024. The U.S. Secretary returns to the Middle East for Gaza ceasefire talks. More funding for New South Wales Emergency Department announced. The Collingwood Magpies soar into the AFL Top 8 with a win over the Melbourne Demons. United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken has returned to the Middle East as a proposed Israel-Hamas ceasefire deal hangs in a balance. Mr. Blinken has arrived in Cairo, Egypt, days after the rescue of 4 Israeli hostages held in Gaza in a major military raid and turmoil in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. With no firm response yet from Hamas to the proposal, Mr. Blinken is set to start his 8th diplomatic mission to the region since the conflict escalated dramatically on the 7th of October. He is to meet Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi in Cairo before traveling to Israel, Jordan, and Qatar. While President Joe Biden and Mr. Blinken have praised the hostage rescue, the operation resulted in the death of more than 270 Palestinians, according to the Gaza's health ministry, which may complicate the ceasefire push. Narendra Modi has taken charge as Prime Minister of India for a 3rd consecutive term. It comes after a surprising electoral setback that will test his ability to ensure political security in a coalition government in the world's most populous nation. Mr. Modi also presented his recommendation for the 72-member Council of Ministers, whose portfolios are yet to be announced. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns says the upcoming state budget will include a $15.1 million to help ease the pressure on emergency departments. The funding is said to be used to upgrade the public health assistance ambulance patient allocation system. It will take into account capacity at nearby emergency departments, travel times, and a patient clinical condition through a real-time live data. Mr. Minns says the measure will help reduce response times. Quote, that does 2 things. First, it gets paramedics back into the community quicker, which can help with response times. And secondly, it limits the amount of ramping that we are currently facing, particularly during winter seasons, across major public hospitals in Sydney, quote. The state government had already announced a $480 million plan to improve the state's hospital emergency departments. Queensland Premier Stephen Myers says the state budget to be announced today will focus on cost of living pressures, but an increase in the state's debt raised concern. The plan includes a 1,000 emergency energy rebates and 50-cent public transport fares for 6 months. But the Myers Labour government may push Queensland into a record $172 billion Australian dollars debt to fund the coal-rich state's transition to renewable energy, even though the centerpiece of the planned low emissions electricity grid has yet to receive approval. New Treasury forecast released in the budget revealed that the government's total debt will increase by $70 billion from mid-2023 to the end of the 2027 to 2028 fiscal year. The government says the debt is needed to finance the phasing out of the state's coal-fired power generators and manage population growth. Mr. Myers says the budget has a clear target. Quote, addressing the cost of living sits at the heart of this budget. 1,000 energy rebates topped out with a further 300 from the Australian government and a further 372 for vulnerable households, 70 cents public transport fares, 200 vouchers to get kids into sport, 50% off radio, It's a budget that proudly helps young people to buy their first home. Quote, the federal health minister says he's monitoring the potential human health risk of Victoria's avian flu outbreak very closely. Mark Butler says Victoria's management of the H7N3 outbreak at 5 egg farms is reassuring, and the state is working closely with the Commonwealth. But he conceded authorities are always alert to the possibility of human infection. Mr. Butler says tackling avian flu is a global problem, with every continent except Australia currently battling outbreaks of an H5N1 strain. Quote, there have been some cases of crossover into human infection. There has not been a case of infection here in Australia, although there has been a young person who returned to Australia from another country with an infection. So we are monitoring from the human health portfolios. We are monitoring the avian flu spread around the world as well as here in Australia very, very closely. Quote, more than 500,000 chickens have been euthanized in Victoria so far, while Coles supermarkets have imposed a 2-carton limit for customers buying eggs everywhere but Western Australia. The minister has joined other leaders urging customers not to panic buy products. Now in sports, in AFL, the Collingwood Magpies have moved into the top 8, while the Melbourne Demons lost Christian Pacheco. The Magpies has defeated the Demons in a jam-packed match on King's birthday, even though 2 superstars were replaced with various degrees of concern. The Demons didn't lead once during the clash, and the Pies further strengthened their premiership credentials with a 38-point win. The win takes Collingwood from 9th to 6th in the table, while Melbourne lost their 4th game in 5 weeks and go into the rest period with a very low level of confidence for the second half of the season. And that's all for this podcast and practice.